January, voters head to the polls for a special primary. We're previewing the candidates running in that race this week, starting with Republican David Jolly. Jolly is new to the candidate side of the political arena. Prior to deciding to run for Congress, he served as an aide to the late Congressman C.W. Bill Young and as a lobbyist. If elected, Jolly says he would vote to repeal the Affordable Care Act, but would stop short of a government shutdown. Locally, he says, protecting defense industry jobs and addressing the flood insurance increases are top on his list of priorities.
Simply delaying the Bigger Waters Act is not going to solve the problem. We have to do it because it's the most immediate solution is to delay.
Baby's 9 is profiling all of the candidates in the District 13 race. You can also learn more about them by going to our website, baynews9.com/politics. The Republican primary winner along with Democrat
to shape the vibe of the show. It has come to be expected each year. TVs are still the one device all the tech giants seem to agree need to be center or pretty close to center stage. 4K TVs, 4 times the resolution of current HD TVs, started to sell in 2013. 2014, though, seems time for...
And nothing's going to happen. And strangely, it was actually when they put the tourniquets on, and they put the tourniquets on incredibly hard, and I suddenly felt this pain. And that was the first moment I thought, you know what, maybe I can make it. And then I set myself these goals and say, well, look, I can keep awake for another 2 or 3 minutes. And I knew the helicopters were coming to pick me up, and I thought, I can wait 5 minutes for them to get me. Then you get on the helicopter, you keep thinking to yourself, break it down again. Just think, I can survive for another 5 minutes, I can survive for another 10 minutes. And I just kept breaking it down. And I kept shouting out, I'm not dying in Afghanistan, I'm not dying in Afghanistan.
And of course, we're going to talk later about what happens to civilians in Afghanistan. You were relatively lucky, if that's not the most absurd word to use, in one sense that you had all the resources of the US military to get you to a proper hospital as soon as possible. You were there, I think, by helicopter in about 20, 25 minutes.
I was incredibly lucky. Again, it's funny, people don't understand. I spent years working in Central Africa, and I was near there in a car accident, a minor car accident that could well be the end of it because you're never going to get to a hospital. So I was new when I was there. In any other place in the world, even if I'd been pulled up into an emergency centre in London, I would have done it.
You had been, and we're going to talk about your photographic career, but just as a human being, you've been very active. You know, you've run marathons, you've been extraordinarily energetic. You made it back out, they saved your life, eventually.
Dean Romans. Jim, set the scene for us. The president's going to come out, welcome this procedural vote, allowing the bill to go forward in the Senate, but there's still a long struggle ahead if the 1.3 million Americans who will require this additional emergency unemployment insurance are about to get some more money.
That's right, Wolf. I mean, they know they're not out of the woods yet. This is going to have to go through another vote or two in the Senate before it goes over to the House, where this extension of long-term unemployment benefits is by no means a sure thing. And so you're going to hear the president again make this pitch that this is necessary not only to these jobless Americans, but also to the overall economy. That is the message from this White House. Interesting to note, Wolf, the optics of this event you're going to see in just a few moments in the East Room of the White House. The president is going to be surrounded by people whose unemployment insurance has expired. As a matter of fact, the person who will be introducing the president we're just hearing will be a woman by the name of Catherine Hackett of Connecticut. Catherine is someone who wrote to the president to talk about how she relies on these unemployment benefits, and that, according to a White House official, these benefits cover her mortgage payment, her health care, leaving her little to no room to really cope with the day-to-day expenses of her life. And so what the White House is trying to do is try to make this a real-life thing for people to understand at home, people who are not in the same situation as these folks who are on this unemployment benefits. But one thing I can tell you from a strategic standpoint over at this White House, they were sort of bracing for the possibility that this may not happen. Of course, we heard overnight that they might be one vote shy. In the end, they had the votes. But White House officials are sort of encouraged by the way this debate has been moving. You'll recall before the holidays came about, Wolf, there was sort of this academic argument that was going on in some circles as to whether or not unemployment insurance, these long-term benefits, encourage unemployment, encourage people not to seek out work. And now Democrats and people here at the White House are seeing Republicans saying, okay, well, maybe we can go along with this as long as it's paid for. I think there's a feeling inside this White House that maybe they can get these Republicans to move just a little bit further.
All right, stand by. Dana Bash is up on Capitol Hill. Walk us through the next steps if these 1.3 million Americans are going to continue to get this unemployment insurance, these benefits. What has to happen?
What has to happen is first it has to ultimately pass the Senate, but then, as Jim mentioned, it would have to pass the House of Representatives. And the House Speaker, John Boehner, already put out a statement saying effectively that right now the House is not going to take this up, that they're going to focus on what Republicans think is the best way to spur jobs, and that is to pass legislation that does just that, as opposed to passing legislation that pays for jobless benefits. And he specifically pointed out that this is not about the typical 26-week unemployment benefit that is still what he called the safety net for Americans who lose their jobs. This is an emergency unemployment benefit that was put in place when the recession started in 2008, and he also made very clear that it has added to the debt $210 billion, and it cost $265 billion total, and it has been extended 12 times or more. The point that he is making, as Jim mentioned, is if the president wants to come to Republicans and say, look, I think that this is necessary for 3 more months, this is my idea of how to pay for it, and this is also my idea of how to reform the system, fine, they'll listen. But it's pretty clear that Republicans in the House, even if this passes the ultimate hurdle in the Senate, are not interested in this, despite the fact that you did see 6 Republicans break ranks this morning in the Senate and vote with Democrats, because they feel that despite the positive signs for the economy, many Americans are still not out of the woods, especially in these great times. I mean, just look at what's going on.
We're looking at, Wolf, now, if you take a step back, as kind of an inflection point in the Republican Party. And I think there are factions within the Republican Party who are saying, look, in order to survive as a national party, to start winning presidential elections, we can't just vote no, but what we have to do is come up with some ways for people to by not only a pay for it, that you have to figure out a way to pay for it, but we also have to pass some legislation to train people for new kinds of jobs, because they can't go back to their old ones.
Yeah, well, those are the difficult issues. Christine Romans watching it go. One sort of line at this White House statement in the background, and we'll hear it from the president, I'm sure, Christine, in his remarks coming up momentarily. They say failing to extend this emergency insurance would have negative impacts on the economy, costing 240,000 jobs this year. Explain what the White House contention here is.
Because every time someone gets this $300 emergency unemployment check, every time they get it, these are people who've been out of work for a very long time. Well, that money goes right into the economy. It goes to the grocery store, it goes to fill up the car, it goes to pay the home heating oil bill. As Dana pointed out, I mean, it goes right into the economy. So economists say it's money that adds into the economy. What Republicans say is that, yeah, that's fine, except you got to pay for it somewhere else. You know, you got to take away some other wasteful program somewhere else. Look, the long-term crisis here is what the president is so concerned about. The very near term, the people who've been